If you want to hear a true entrepreneurial success story in the hobby with some great lessons to take away, then this is the episode for you. Hello, and here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Geoff Wilson Show, and this is a special one. We're on the show floor here of the Burbank Card Show, and I am with one of my favorite people in the hobby. This is Stephanie Garcia from MamaBreaks, and she's one of my favorite people for a couple of reasons. First of all, I love the work she does with kids. She's very pro getting kids into the hobby. We're going to talk about that. But also, she's got an amazing backstory, having gone from being a school teacher to taking the entrepreneurial leap to turning the hobby into a full-time business and then watching that business grow to the point where she's hiring employees, scaling in revenue, and having a ton of success. How did this all happen and come about? Well, we're going to find out right now. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show,
I'm
Geoff.
super excited to have you here. So for people out there who don't know Stephanie Garcia at all, what would you tell them about you?
Just what you said. I was a middle school teacher right before this. I did it for about 4 years. I taught 7th and 8th grade English. So English was a passion of mine growing up. I actually wanted to be an art historian.
Okay.
I don't tell a lot of people that. And then I really loved baseball growing up. So the first time I ever started collecting cards was with Pokemon. And that slowly turned into baseball cards as I started falling more in love with the game of baseball and playing softball a little more competitively, like in middle school and high school. So I remember getting packs of baseball cards from Target and just looking for Dodgers and kind of saving those in my binder and really throwing away the rest, really. And I never knew anyone who collected cards growing up or much of anything growing up. And it wasn't until like around quarantine, I was teaching from home. And on the news, obviously, everybody was going crazy buying blasters at Target and stuff. So I was interested in maybe starting to do cards again. And I fell in love with them.
You got hooked again.
I got hooked. So the first reason I wanted to buy a card was for my stepdad for his birthday. And I remember thinking, okay, where do I go? I started my research. I asked other people who I knew kind of did collectibles. And they said the best place to look was eBay. And that's kind of the first place that I started seeing these cards. And I was thinking to myself, this is so amazing. These cards are so beautiful. They're nothing like the baseball cards I opened when I was younger.
They've come a long way.
So the first set I opened was a 2008 Topps Update. Look, I didn't even know was Clayton Kershaw's rookie year. That's just like really when I was.
And even those were a lot more interesting than the cards that I opened when I was a kid, like late 80s baseball cards. I mean, back then we thought they were wonderful. Today you look back on them and you're like, where's the parallels? Where's the autos? Where's the patches? Where's the numbered cards, right? Like all the things that make cards special today, they didn't have back then.
Absolutely. And I had no idea autograph cards existed or patch cards existed. So I remember the first card I got. Well, I was very much hooked into the modern stuff. So I know like vintage is beautiful. I have more of an appreciation for it now. But when I first started looking, I really fell in love with I know this is crazy, but like Prism, Zion year, obviously that's what we were all looking. A lot of people started with that.
Sure.
And I had this conversation with the shop owner a few days ago that it was really like Prism draft picks. Went crazy.
I do remember that Zion's year. I actually opened up some boxes. In fact, there's even an early video on the Sports Card Investor channel of me and my son, Reeves, opening up Prism draft picks together. From that Zion, John Morant year 2019. Yeah, there was so much anticipation for that product because that was the first product that had like Zion's cards in the product. And we actually pulled a gold vinyl out of 5 Zion.
No way.
It was insane.
That's
I gotta
crazy.
go. I haven't watched that video actually for a couple of years, but that video is out there on the Sports Card Investor channel. I need to go back and watch that actually.
So it's a lot of those first cards.
Yeah.
And
so that got you into it too.
Same thing happened with like LaMelo.
Yeah,
his Prism
that was a
draft
big rush.
picks were huge.
That was a big rush.
So I got like my dad. He went to Michigan State, and I got my stepdad like a Michigan State player. It was like a green scope at an 8. And I probably overpaid for it, but I messaged the eBay seller. I was like, "Hey, this is the first card I ever bought. It's for my dad. He went to Michigan State." And the seller sent me all kinds of Michigan State.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like autos and different players that went there.
Super cool.
Like my husband makes fun of it still because he sent us like a Jon Snow auto.
Okay.
Like something random, you know,
Right.
but something we were able to appreciate then
Yeah.
and kind of learn more about what's out there. So,
Yeah.
and even thinking too, like, wow, these people are like card people are awesome.
You see, that's,
You
I mean,
know?
that's such a cool story. I hope, first of all, I hope people take that story away, because your first experience getting back into cards, somebody just selling on eBay who'd never had interacted with you before, had no idea who you were, literally went out of their way to make sure that you had a good experience by sending you extra cards that they knew you would like, so that you could get to experience the hobby more. I mean, good for them for doing that. That's like
Yeah.
that's like an awesome, that's a great thing to hear. You hear a lot of that stuff in the hobby. You see it on the show floors where, you got a dealer who a kid comes up to do a deal with them, and they make sure the kid gets a good deal or gives the kid an extra card or something like a nice, there's a lot of paying it forward in the hobby, which is really cool to
Absolutely.
see. I mean, I think that's a great thing about it.
I think it comes from a genuine, for me anyway, it comes from a genuine like wanting and desire to share this with other people.
Yeah.
Because that's really what makes it fun. It can be a very introverted activity like collecting, but once you have a community that you can share it with, it just makes it so much more exciting.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest takeaway or biggest reason why I like to set up at shows still is I come and meet people that are in rooms with me usually during live, and getting to rip together in person is just like such an awesome
Yeah.
experience, enjoying the cards together. So
Well, I want to get
Yeah.
to your business in a minute, but I got to go back to your backstory first, right?
Okay.
So, the school teacher thing's really interesting. You were born in this country, but
Yes.
I know your dad was from outside of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got relatives in Mexico, so you
Yes.
you have a lot of kind of Hispanic,
Yes.
in your blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the school that you taught at,
Yes.
that was largely a Hispanic student population.
Predominantly Latino. At least I want to say, remember the percentages being when I was teaching there, 98% of my students' parents were Spanish speakers.
Wow.
It's the area I grew up in, and I also, my first language was Spanish.
This
growing
is
up,
like
too.
downtown LA, inner city?
Inner city Los
Okay.
Angeles. So
Okay.
some would call it South Central Los Angeles. So,
Okay.
yeah, where
All
if
right.
you've seen those
my
movies,
exposure to South Central is movies and rap songs. I mean, that's my exposure.
absolutely. If you've seen those movies, that is exactly where I lived growing up.
Before we continue, I want to let you know that DraftKings Rainmakers Football is back for its second season, and it's bigger and better than ever before. Head to DraftKings.com/audio and sign up to play Rainmakers today with code GWS for your share of over $30 million in prizes this football season. This week, new customers can claim their first pack of digital player cards for free to get started. Playing Rainmakers Football is simple. Each DraftKings digital card represents an athlete and scores points based on their real-world performance. Draft them into weekly contests for your shot at a share of $30 million in prizes, or sell them anytime on the DraftKings marketplace. Rainmaker contests require no fee to join, as long as you have enough cards to complete a lineup. So rip packs, build your collection, and earn big rewards. Wondering how to get started? New customers visit DraftKings.com/audio today and use promo code GWS to claim a free starter pack. Only at DraftKings.com/audio with code GWS. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Rainmakers contests are not available in certain states. One starter pack per customer. Starter pack player cards are ineligible for resale. See terms at DraftKings.com/Rainmakers. So were your students into baseball like you were? Is that a sport that was popular amongst the kids in your school, or is it more soccer?
I want to say baseball was more my family. Baseball is very a family sport for me, mostly my stepfather's family. So
Is that why you were into it? Because I don't think
Yes.
most young girls in America, I don't think are that into baseball.
no, I mean, I think more so than other sports, I've seen more women kind of go to baseball first, or even soccer, because that's more of like what we could play growing up more
Right.
competitively. So
That's fair.
more girls play soccer and
Right.
softball and stuff
versus
like that.
versus like football, right?
And basketball even.
Right.
So, no, but a story I like to tell, I mean, I've never made this connection with my stepdad and his dad, which I probably should get that story, but the way I see the history of like when my stepdad's father came here, Fernando Mania was very much alive. And that's really, like, if you look at the history of Fernando Mania and Fernando Valenzuela,
Right.
that's when baseball became a very
Okay.
a very huge part of Mexican American culture. He was a Mexican pitcher, and he was had amazing rookie year and did so amazing for the Dodgers. So a lot of Mexican Americans still in LA are huge Dodger fans.
Right.
So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So you're okay. Yeah, that explains a lot about how you got into it as a kid and everything like that. But you're teaching school. You're teaching 7th and 8th grade. It's the pandemic, which I'm sure created a lot of challenges to how this was done.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you're like kind of opening up packs of baseball cards on the side.
Yeah.
But how do we go from that point in your life, which was only a couple of years ago, to the point in your life where you're actually leaving your school teaching job, you're breaking, and you're actually getting into like doing a business within the sports card hobby full time?
I think it's hard to pinpoint like one reason why it all happened. I kind of think it's been so many circumstances throughout my life. Like I said, liking Pokemon cards and then meeting my stepdad and falling in love with all these things kind of like work together, loving art history, loving sports. I like to think everything just happened because it was supposed to happen. Really, it feels that way. But I was teaching from home, and I started just a big need that I saw in this industry was like the educational aspect of it. So the first time I told you I went to eBay, but then I went to Google. I Googled sports cards and I really saw nothing. I was kind of trying to figure out how this all works. I had a lot of questions, and it wasn't really until I found your YouTube channel that I started learning a lot more about, what is grading, what types of different sets are out there. And I just didn't think I didn't think there was enough. So one of the biggest reasons I started my Instagram page was like, let me have fun with this, Throughout quarantine, I saw a lot of women do a lot of stuff like around baby food. All these people that were influencing me during quarantine, I felt like I could do something similar.
Okay. But influence on sports cards and your journey into sports cards.
Because I enjoyed it. And I haven't told this to a lot of people, but like one of the categories on social media that fascinated me was like the social media around making baby food.
Yeah.
So at the time I was pregnant. I had my little one, he was 1. So I was following like all these amazing women really building their business around making baby food and doing it in a way where they were getting a lot of followers because they were teaching a lot about it. So I was like, let me teach what I learn as I go in this industry, in this hobby and collecting. And that's how I kind of started and ramped up my Instagram and my TikTok page.
Okay. Now, were you so at first, though, you were just doing this as a collector? Had you started actually getting into like breaking yet as of that point or making any money from it at all?
No. So I started as collecting and then using like my creative outlet to make these reels and videos. And then I started selling on singles on eBay.
Okay.
So like I was opening and then selling on eBay.
Were you MamaBreaks at this point in time?
No.
Okay.
I was selling on my old eBay page.
Okay.
So
you
I had
hadn't
my personal.
yet come up with your brand yet?
No.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I joined, like, I was a regular in a breaking group on Instagram. I just told Hobbsy this. Their name was like Bonds Breaks. He doesn't do it anymore.
Okay. So you were buying into breaks as a
Yeah.
customer.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's kind of where my husband, I guess he really ignited this idea in me because he saw how interested I was in it. We were learning about breaking and we thought it was exciting. And I had him buy packs and we were both in there until we were thinking I could probably be kind of good at that.
Okay.
Because I really do it with the
All right.
kids online. I was teaching from home, so
Yeah.
I had I had more experience being in front of the camera. So
you and he
Yeah.
were watching these other people do it, and then you
Yeah.
decided, they're doing it. Why can't I do it?
Mhm.
Okay. And you decided to do it. So how did your very first break happen? Like where you tried to sell a break? Like how did that happen?
Wow, that was crazy. So I focus a lot on building my social media first. And I told myself if I reached 1,000 followers on Instagram, that I would try a break on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. And once
So that was the goal. You said to yourself, if I get 1,000 followers, I'm going to try a break. There's some really good business logic in here, and I want to make sure people capture this. I believe that in today's, business day and age, today's society, that having people who trust you, it has to be following for the right reasons. This has to be people who trust you, people who like you, people who believe in you. If you have that following, it's gold when doing something exactly like what you're talking about doing, right? Like if you've got an audience, then you can try something new, and you've got an audience that immediately is able to respond to it and hopefully buy into it and support it. Or they may tell you that's not the right thing, and we're not going to buy into this and support this, but either way, you're going to get the real-time feedback. If you don't have audience, then you have to try to artificially, not artificially, but you have to go about other means of trying to get people to like see what you're doing and pay attention. You have to pay for marketing, essentially, to pay for advertising, right? And that's harder. It's more expensive. And often, the conversion rates and everything aren't there. So I think what you did was really, really savvy in the fact that you said, I'm first going to build audience. And if I'm successful, and if I get to a certain level, and if I have a certain level of followers, a certain level of engagement, then I may try to do something like business related with the audience and see if they buy into it. I think that's really smart. So
thank you.
So you get to the 1,000 follower point.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, I'm going to attempt a break.
Yeah.
So how did that go? What was that like?
So I did a giveaway, and it was actually the first time I don't know, I just thought to myself, I think building trust is something huge that I always felt like was necessary for starting a break, because I don't think I would have joined breaks if I didn't trust the person that I was already joining breaks with. So I made a point to, it's probably still out there, please don't go look at it, but like I made a point to show my face.
Okay.
In a video and kind of like reintroduce myself and say, hey everybody, like thank you so much for 1,000 followers. Here's a little giveaway, which was like a cello pack, I think, or something. And I'm gonna start breaking.
Okay.
Kind of like reintroducing myself to try to build that trust. And then I did my first break. It didn't feel right away. Absolutely did not. But it didn't take a week.
This was just like a retail box you bought?
Yes.
Or did you get it from a card shop? Or?
It was retail boxes that I bought in bulk on OfferUp.
Okay. Okay. So you kind of you didn't have any connections back then.
Nope.
You weren't getting, distributor accounts. You didn't have any of that stuff, but you were able to get a lot of retail boxes for a little bit below market price.
Yeah, pretty good
And then
deal,
you said, I'm just going to try to sell slots and hope that one of these fills up.
Yep. I think I did like a divisional, and then, it took a few days, it filled. And I think I did it on my dining room table.
Okay.
And I had like a white mat. I didn't have my breaking mat and stuff yet, with my curtain as a background and like a ring light.
Okay.
Instagram Live.
That's how you did it. Okay. So you got one break under your belt now.
Yeah.
You've done your first one. You probably made a little bit of money on it, but
probably none.
Probably,
I think with shipping and everything, just learning. So I don't remember though.
Were you immediately encouraged to do it again?
Absolutely. And because I enjoyed the actual live part.
Okay.
Yeah.
You enjoyed the experience of being on camera.
I enjoyed honestly, I enjoyed the entire experience. Okay. And the sorting, the shipping, the opening of cards, like it was very fun for me.
So you did another one? And then another one after that? Is that how it's just started to build that way?
Yeah, and I kind of just really try to be as consistent as possible. I wasn't really consistent at the beginning. I have kids and I was still working. And I really felt like the growth when Whatnot came around.
Okay. So
I was on Whatnot in August of 2021. I saw that it was a platform that it seemed a little easier to sell on. You kind of just built in audience of people who...
So you had been just doing Instagram up to that point. How long were you just doing that on Instagram before you decided to like go on to Whatnot?
I don't know. I want to say I did 10 breaks, but even like those breaks that I used to do were very thought through.
Okay.
Like I took a long time thinking them through and putting it up and just growing and learning and getting better at shipping every time and all these things.
Okay.
And I applied to Whatnot and I got accepted, and that's where I really started trying to be more consistent.
Okay. So you got into Whatnot and you said, okay, it's time to step this up a little bit. It seems like at that point you started treating it maybe more like a business, more of a path forward for you.
Yep.
Interesting. So you did it on Whatnot. Did you struggle? How are you getting the boxes? Like I know that's someone out there who wants to start breaking tomorrow. One of the real challenges is getting product at a price that allows you to actually make profit for it, from it, because you're not going to be able to get a direct account from Topps or Panini right away. It probably would take a long time. You're not going to be able to get a direct account from Topps or Panini right away, probably not for a while, and you probably can't even maybe get an account from one of the big distributors. So that's hard for people that are starting out and they're like, I want to start breaking, I want to get into this, but how do they get the product? How did you deal with that?
Building a relationship with my local card shop. So once I started becoming more serious on whatnot, I started coming into my first problem as a business is not having enough inventory. So I thought to myself, I have to figure something out. And I was already buying a lot from my local card shop and built a really good relationship with them. And I was just honest about what I was trying to do and the type of margin that I wanted to make and if we could make things work. And we found different ways. I mean, there's, I think, a lot of ways breakers can help card shops and card shops can help breakers. So I think it's really important to really focus on building a positive relationship with someone who does have access that you don't and help each other as much as possible. I always went in with the mentality of helping first because I knew I was in a position of need and it just I think even if you don't make money on every product, that's not the worst thing. Mm-hmm. You do make maybe more on something else and later lose on something. It becomes even now, even at the rate of breaks that I'm doing, I'm not always making money on every single break. You kind of figure out how to even all of it out. And it's really complicated. I'm probably the worst person to talk about this, by the way, so maybe don't put all of that in there, but I'm still learning.
The story's great. The story is great. I mean, it's an important story for people to hear. So you didn't have any connections. It's, people, it's easy for people to like look at people who have had a lot of success and be like, oh, they had stuff handed to them or look at of course they have all these connections now because of who they are. But the beginnings often are actually very humble where you're starting off with no connections, where you don't know anybody, where you're starting literally from scratch. Mm-hmm. When I got back into sports cards, I remember going to the National in 2019. I had just started the Sports Card Investor YouTube channel. I knew not a single person. Like there was nobody who knew who I was at the National. Actually, one person actually had seen one of my videos. My videos back then had like 100 views. And unbelievably, one of the 100 people who had seen one of my videos actually said, I think I saw one of your videos on YouTube. That was it. Like no one else. And and that first National in 2019, I put, I literally went into the corner of the room, put my phone on a tripod. I brought my own tripod. I wasn't even traveling with it. I had no video people. I had nothing. So I literally brought my own phone, my own tripod, set it up in the corner, put it and did a little report. I brought a little microphone. I did a little report from the National and put that on my YouTube. And it's funny because the beginnings of what Sports Card Investor were so humble. Like they were literally me recording on an iPad, doing my own editing. And the videos were very, very basic, back then. It was like super humble beginnings. And of course, now today we have an entire team, but it started in a much different manner. And your story.
I feel like I'm still there.
Well, you're beyond there now because you've got a big brand and you've got people working for you, and we'll get there in a second. But it's you started in the same manner where you said, I want to do this. I want to take this leap, but I don't have connections. I don't have direct accounts. I don't have a way of getting product. I don't know people at Topps or Panini. Mm-mm. Yet you did the smart thing. You said, who can I build a relationship with, that could potentially be a win-win relationship? And for you, that was a local card shop who you had a good relationship with. You'd already been buying from them. And it sounds like, that relationship turned out in a positive for you. And that's awesome. And I think people sometimes forget how much they can achieve even if they don't have any connections by just trying to, just trying to hustle and grind and find any relationship that they can then create and then build upon, because you never know where those relationships are going to lead and how the dots will eventually be connected for you, right?
I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
Does that ever end?
Does it ever end? No, it absolutely never ends.
Because I'm thinking when do you come to the point where you don't have to do that anymore? I don't think it.
No, it never really ends. I mean, I would say it never really ends.
You always have to do that, right?
You always have to do that to a degree, because if you're going to continue to try to grow your business, no matter what size it is, then there's always levels above that you want to get to, right? Yeah, because if you want to grow your business, as you grow and you grow, there's always additional levels that you want to get to, and additional levels requires new relationships and challenging yourself in ways you haven't challenged and going into unfamiliar territory. I just think it always probably works that way. I mean, I don't know. Maybe when you get to the very tippy top and you're totally dominating a whole industry category or something, I don't know. But like, I feel like I've always just seen it to always kind of be that way. But that's also part of the fun of it. Like it.
Absolutely.
And the more at bats you give yourself, the more chances you have for success. And if you think about relationships as at bats, you know, if you meet one person, that's one opportunity for that to turn into some serendipitous connection with others. If you meet 5 people, now you've multiplied your chances by 5 of one of those relationships helping you get to the next step. If you meet 25 people, if you meet 250 people, now you've got 250 chances of one of those relationships serendipitously helping you in some way get to the next thing, right? And so I think it's a lot about that.
Yeah.
And over time, your relationships obviously grow, but then you continue to need new ones. And hopefully some of the people you have relationships with can help you get to the next relationship that you need in order to help propel yourself to the next stage of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But that's too much of my story. This is about you. And this is about you. So, okay, so you switch over to Whatnot. You've got some product now that's coming from your local card shop that you worked out a deal with. And at what point did you start to say, wow, this can be like a real business? This is not just a little side hustle, but this can actually be a real business.
Hard push in the second floor.
I think exactly what you described, just meeting the right people and learning and kind of seeing where I was going and where I could take it. It became a less of like, can I do this? And more of like, I kind of have a roadmap of how to make this happen. And like my relationships with eBay and then having relationships with Fanatics, it just seemed like I was at a point where I was spreading myself kind of thin, to be honest. I was working as a teacher. I was actually doing some classes after and trying to break like a case or something a week. And I just thought I didn't think I knew that it was going to work out. I mean, I still don't, but I felt like I really had to take the chance, and if I didn't do it full time, I wouldn't be giving it a fair chance. So.
And you went full time summer 2022, right? So that you wrapped up the 2021-2022 school year, and then you said, "That's it. I'm going full time into sports cards."
Yeah.
What were those conversations like with your husband? When I assume these conversations happened, maybe like in early 2022, where you were like, "Honey, I think I want to do this full time. I don't think I want to go back and be a teacher the following school year."
Oh no, I never said that.
You never said that. Did he say that to you, or how did?
So I came to that point where I felt like I was spreading myself thin, and we had the conversation that something has to give here. I either had to quit going to school to advance my degree, and not really take the sports card thing serious, but continue to do it because I enjoyed it, or it was going to be completely put just teaching on the back burner because I could always go back and just try out the sports card breaking full time. And he had been telling me to quit teaching since January of that year.
Okay, so he was very supportive. He was pushing you in this direction.
He was pushing me in this direction. He was more of like, what have you been waiting for?
Right.
Kind of thing. So.
But this is a big risk for your family, right? Like to go into something like this full time, this has got to be a big leap. You've got a steady paycheck, I'm sure, as a teacher. Mm-hmm. And you're taking night classes to get a more advanced degree. And now you're saying, put all that on hold and I'm doing this. And this is not just switching jobs and getting another regular paycheck. This is like, you don't get paid, you don't get any money unless you're able to do these breaks, make profit on them, build this up into a big business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I just lean on my husband so much. Yeah, I really couldn't do it without him. I mean, he gets really great insurance with his company. That's big for us too, because we have 2 small kids, and he just. And I think this more so for myself. I've actually quit a job when I had my first son. I was working at Costco as a bakery manager. I did really well there, and I actually quit that career to make less money as a teacher. So I had that experience of kind of taking a risk already. I quit.
You went from being a baker at Cisco.
Costco.
Sorry. You went from being a baker at Costco, where you had a good career and were doing well. So teaching was actually a step down. So you had the experience already of saying, I'm going to quit this thing and follow something that I'm passionate about and love, which was teaching. And then you said, actually, no, I'm some years later, I'm going to quit teaching because now there's something I'm even more passionate about, which is sports cards and building my own business.
So I kind of had like the muscle memory, I guess you could say. The first decision was a lot harder to leave Costco because it was a big difference in pay and where was I going to go with this?
Muscle memory.
Yeah, it was muscle memory. So it wasn't that hard of a decision, honestly. And I think I had it in the back of my mind that I could always go back to teaching, but I haven't thought about going back to
Never
teaching
thought about it
a moment since.
So you weren't terrified. It sounded like you were actually fairly confident in your decision and fairly confident that you were ready to do it, ready to go on your own, and that you were going to make it work.
Because I think what I learned when I quit Costco was that I believe in myself.
Yeah.
I think to that point in my life, I was still very young. When I quit Costco, I was about 25 or 26. And what really pushed me to quit that time was that I believed that I can do anything, that I could figure out how to do anything. And even in teaching, I love teaching and I think amazing at it. And even now with this, I continue to I believe in myself is what I'm trying to explain here. And it's such a mental block sometimes. And if anything's held me back these past few years is sometimes believing that I can't do something. So I constantly have to remind myself, yes, you can do it. And that just makes paths more clearer, solutions more clearer. So more clear.
Right. So we're sitting here just a little over a year from the time that you went into this full time. Where is MamaBreaks today compared to where it was, when you first started doing this full time?
What's crazy is that I don't think I've really sat down to think about it too much. I kind of have just been going and going and going this past year. And if sitting down right now and thinking about it, it's I wouldn't have imagined that I would be here. Honestly, I'm working out of a studio in an office, and I have an office where we ship out of, and I have 3 part-time breakers and of someone who works with me full-time, and I even have a booth at the Burbank Card Show on the corporate floor that's being manned by 4 people, and just...
So you got real business now. We got employees, we got several employees, you got office space, you got rent, you got a lot going on. Yeah. And through that all, of course, I've been watching you grow, from the sidelines over the last year, and I've seen your, not only your relationships with the manufacturers, form and get stronger, but to the point where Fanatics and Topps actually featured you as one of the premier people when Fanatics Live went on. You went to the All-Star game to promote the launch of Fanatics Live. Like, you were selected to do that. Like, you've had a lot of big opportunities. If you were on your own Topps card, like, you've had a lot of big opportunities in the last several months, it seems, that have kind of come about. I know you got to meet with Michael Rubin at the National. So, like, a lot of big things kind of happening. Does this stuff surprise you, or is it just like in the moment, it's just like, yeah, like that's the next thing and that's great and that's awesome, but then it's kind of on to the next one beyond that?
It absolutely surprises me every single time, but it also fires me up. Like, it invigorates me to keep working harder. Not harder is the wrong word, but just keep doing what I'm doing and trying to get better every time. So every time I get something like that, I'm obviously extremely grateful. And I just try to figure out how I can continue to use all of this where I can, grow something that's helps people. I don't know. Yeah.
And is it all breaking right now? Is that like you've got these folks breaking for you? Like, is breaking the main, MamaBreaks revenue stream? Is that what the growth's all been powered by breaking?
Revenue stream, absolutely. Yeah. That's how we make the money. Yeah.
Right.
But there's so many other things that I do.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily consider myself a content creator, but I feel like that's a big part of what I do too. And then obviously organizing the kids' trade day is something that I've been able to get some revenue from, but also just putting it back in and continue to build it and grow it. So you've continued
to create content at probably an even greater pace than what you used to. And it's tough as a owner of a scaling business. One of the first things that people sometimes forget about is like the content creation part. I am personally bad at it. I have a team that thank gosh, I have a team that helps, create clips and post things all the time. But like if I'm just left to my own, devices, I'm like, hey, you got to get stuff up on social. Like I'll go days at a time where I'm just like, just heads down and work, busy, family, kids, everything going on. And I just like, I just forget to post, don't have time to post.
Yeah.
But you somehow have been able to just, I feel like maintain just a lot of consistency.
Thank you.
Around posting, right?
I don't think so, but thank you.
It seems that way. You're always in my feed.
I feel like I could be more consistent, but I definitely have someone helping me edit now.
Okay.
Not a lot, maybe 1 or 2 videos a week. But
it helps you get more content out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more you can do to outsource and automate that kind of stuff,
absolutely is what I've been working on.
Because it's hard. It's hard. It takes time. All that stuff takes time. It takes time to do it well. And so delegating, leveraging others and leveraging their strengths to help make you stronger, is I think it's what you got to do. So
it's what I've learned the most in the past few months, I think.
Is that the biggest lesson?
The biggest lesson is that when I was doing well, just doing breaks on my own and whatnot, which I was doing maybe the first 4 or 5 months of me doing this full time, but it just became overwhelming. It became overwhelming to sell like 3 or 4 case breaks and have to sort and ship them all myself. Mm-hmm. So I think the first big lesson was when I hired someone to help me sort, and I was like, wow, why have I been doing this?
Yeah.
Why have I been sorting teams where where I do best or where my time is best spent is being live.
Yeah.
So once I
connecting with people, being on camera. Yeah.
Once I figured that out, I was like, I need to figure out how to be live more. And that's what really sparked my hiring and scaling. But it took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just kind of have to experience it, I think.
100%. But I mean, that's a great lesson for you to have figured out now. And that's a lens now that you got to kind of look at as you continue to grow, because you'll continue to run into that where it's like your time ultimately becomes your most valuable, but also your most limited asset. And how do you maximize that time to make the most impact possible?
Absolutely.
And that's what you got to just continue to press on and think about. Mm-hmm. So that's really, really cool. So, okay. So right now, today, MamaBreaks, you've got all these employees. I know you're on different platforms all the time. Mm-hmm. You're still doing Whatnot. You're doing Fanatics Live. I think you're doing some stuff with Drip, right?
Yeah.
A little bit here and there.
I was.
You were. Yeah. You've been everywhere, right? I've seen you a lot. I've seen you at the card shows. Mm-hmm. Where's this going? Like, what's the big goal? Like, what's next for MamaBreaks, or where's MamaBreaks in a year or two?
My focus is definitely scaling the breaking business. Mm-hmm. So I want to try and be live 7 days a week, as many hours as possible. So that's the goal for the next year. Okay. And then freeing up a lot more of my time once I have that kind of automated. I definitely still want to do live breaks and all of that, but I want to do more of like the content part. And focusing more on organizing kids events. Being the face of MamaBreaks. Being more the face of MamaBreaks is a perfect way to put it. Yes, that's exactly what I'm working on. But I'm not in a rush. Mm-hmm. I don't mind saving that for later. And a big part of what's made me successful is being live every day and building relationships with people and my customers. So very much being live is what I enjoy the most. I think is the actual breaking part, but. Mm-hmm.
I know one of the things that can be most taxing and challenging about growing a business like this is having a family, and the sacrifices that you sometimes have to make, which sometimes even involve your own time and your kids. Yeah. And that I know that can be a challenge. How do you deal with that? I'm sure it's all a work in progress, like it is for me, like it is for everybody.
Yeah.
But how has that been?
I definitely agree with you. It's a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much what hurts me is a sacrifice for me, but obviously a sacrifice for my kids and a sacrifice for my husband. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother actually lives with us, and the majority of the time is with my kids. So
that's awesome. That's great.
So I think I've learned over the past year, it's more that. It's the sacrifice that other people make, and you kind of want to be there and help more, but also kind of having everybody on board and believing in the dream and believing in me. It just fires me up. It becomes my why. Like I said, I want to be more of the face of the brand, but I didn't include that. Just want a little more time and freedom to spend with my kids and even have them be more a part of this. That's why the kids thing to me is awesome. That could be something that they're absolutely a part of in the future. Yeah. So the goal right now is to have more time to spend with them later, and hopefully this creates like that freedom for me. And you don't have balance, you don't figure out, you just have to sacrifice, and I'm still figuring it out. You're right. But
yeah, it's always a work in progress. I mean, everything in business and life is, but that's great that you're thinking in that direction. Okay, so I want to wrap up by talking about the kids thing, because you mentioned the kids thing a few times. We're here at the Burbank Card Show, and you're doing a big event here. You did a big event at the last Burbank Card Show as well. What are you doing with kids and the hobby?
Kids Trade Day has evolved so much over the past few shows. So it all started at a show where I just started a kid scavenger hunt. It was very simple. I didn't put a lot of money into it. I just created like bags with supplies, and people, were very, very open to donating stuff to me right away when I told them what I was doing. And they would go to vendors and like punch a card and come back and get a free bag with me. That's how it started. I did that a few times, and it wasn't until Rob approached me one show and said, hey, how can we make this better? I want you to do it at the Burbank Card Show. And the first one in Burbank, he gave me a room. I'm not an event planner or an event organizer, but I tried my best, and we still made it happen. We still had a lot of cool things and goodies for the kids to do. Next time, I learned a lot from that, and I recognized that I had to have more of like an event organizer kind of mentality. So the next one after that was Ontario, and I reached out to the people who I trusted and I had good relationships with, and it's really when I started realizing you can't do things by yourself. If you want things to be great, you have to ask people. I asked you to do a box battle. CSG did a grading review. Aaron from Slabstocks did trivia. We had mascots from the Quakes come. eBay sponsored it and gave us packs. And this is all coming from like me, just asking people for help with it and showing them what I had done before in the past and how it could work and how many kids were excited about it. And now I think this is going to be my biggest one, where it's kind of exactly like Ontario, but at a larger scale. I'm expecting a lot more kids and a lot more giveaways. And I just think it started very educational for me, the idea that I want kids to grow and be more confident in the hobby, like go up to vendors and learn. But now I'm more focused on the family aspect of it. Growing up, like I said, something that made me very close to my stepdad was baseball. I don't think I would have been as close to him if we didn't have that in common. And that just really built our relationship. I think I've told you this in the past, like you said, who's the most influential person in my life. It's my stepfather. And if we didn't have baseball to share, I don't know how that would have turned out. Same thing with cards. I think it could be something that brings families together, ripping cards together, building memories together, having things to like remember your parents by, and vice versa, the parents, the kids. So that's my vision for it going forward. It's just having families come together and have more people enjoy the hobby. So I want awesome. I want people that don't know anything about cards to come to Kids Trade Day and just fall in love with it. So
that's outstanding. I absolutely love the mission. Cards are just the ultimate family activity. Like I just love having my kids involved in it, and they're all here at the card show. I got 2 sons and a daughter. They're all here. My wife's here, and we're making a Disney weekend out of it as well. So we're at the show, and if the kids get a little bored or tired or whatever, then my wife's going to take them to Disney while I continue to do video and stuff from the show. And it's like a family experience. And, it's earlier today, I was on the show floor with my 2 sons, and, we're going around together. It's fun. It's just a great family experience. So thank you for leaning into that and for trying to, convey that experience to so many folks getting into the hobby. That's wonderful.
But I have to give you credit too, Geoff, because when I've come into this industry, I look a lot to other people. I tell you, I try to learn as much as possible and ask as many questions as possible. And I also like to look at like how people do things from afar. And the way that you do everything and have your kids along for everything, I think to myself, like, you're giving me like a mental image of what I want my next five years to look like, and that's having my kids and my husband be more involved in what I'm doing. So I constantly trying to figure that out. So
that's awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful interview, and I think hopefully everyone out there has taken inspiration from your story. Tell everybody how they can find you if they haven't ever seen Stephanie or MamaBreaks before, which would be hard for me to believe at this point. But how would they find you?
Like I said before, if you're not on Instagram, you probably don't know who I am. But I'm primarily on Instagram. I have a YouTube, and TikTok, I'm trying to be more active on again, but in order to join breaks with me, I'm mostly on eBay Live and Fanatics Live.
Okay. And
So-
it's MamaBreaks.
MamaBreaks across channels. MamaBreaks.
There you go. That's MamaBreaks. She is awesome. That is Stephanie. And you're awesome as well for watching our show. We really appreciate it. And just as a reminder, the full-length episode of these Geoff Wilson shows, they're available on YouTube. They're also available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So make sure to subscribe across the podcast platforms as well as YouTube. We appreciate you watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Take care.